Welcome back to the Warner's Kitchen. We've got a good one today. Girls, what are we going to make today?
Biscottis.
Biscotti. In case you don't know what those are those nice little crispy things you dip in your tea or coffee and eat. It's great. And girls, what's the first thing that we have to do?
Mix and combine ingredients.
Correct. So come on over here. We'll put Peppy down, a Peppy towel. We've got the dry ingredients, we've got the wet ingredients, like a lot of things in baking. And the dry ingredients, we already have 2 1/4 cups of flour. And to that, I'm going to add a ½ teaspoon of baking soda. Now you got to pay attention to baking soda and baking powder. A ½ teaspoon of baking soda. And then the baking powder, we're going to do a teaspoon of baking powder. And we level it off there. We have nice 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then cinnamon. Now, the recipe calls for a ½ teaspoon of cinnamon. However, I like cinnamon, and I think that a teaspoon of cinnamon is better than a ½ teaspoon. I may even change the recipe. So we're going to put a teaspoon of cinnamon in the dry ingredients, and then the healthy ingredients, 1 cup of sugar. Yes, 1 cup. And we're going to put that in. And then we just kind of take a little whisk and whisk them together, and it'll have that kind of nice light brown tint with the cinnamon. So we'll just get those kind of well combined, and then we just leave the dry ingredients sitting there waiting for the wet ingredients. Now, over here we have the wet ingredients. The recipe calls for 2 eggs and 2 egg whites. I already have an egg and an egg white in there, and I have 2 more. So we'll crack an egg and put an entire egg in. And then we're going to do an egg white. Now, if you don't know how to do this, you just crack the egg and you don't let the egg yolk go in. And so you simply crack the egg and you keep the yolk in the eggshell and just let the egg white drip into the bowl. Go back and forth a couple of times. And you can save your egg yolk for something else if you need to, but I'm not going to right now. And then the other wet ingredient is a flavoring. And we're going to put a whole tablespoon of almond extract. You may not have this in your shelf, but it's very good to have. And you could use almond, or you could use a vanilla as well, but we like almond for this. So a whole tablespoon of extract, and that's very strong, but that'll give it a great, great flavor. And so then we whisk these up. You don't have to froth them or anything. We just need to get the wet ingredients combined well enough. And there we go. And then we're going to pour the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. So there we go. And then we're going to kind of mix them together. Now, it doesn't have to be beaten. In fact, it shouldn't be beaten. We're just going to use this spatula to kind of fold everything together in the bowl. And you just keep mixing it around until all the wet or the dry ingredients is absorbed, or the water, the wet ingredients absorbed into the dry ingredients. And there we have the mixing. And we'll come back to do the next step in just a second. Mix the wet and the dry ingredients together. I just dumped that out on the counter here just to kind of form it a little more. And then we have to add our almonds inside. I have a ½ cup here. I may not add them all, but I'm just going to maybe start with a ¼ cup, and then all you have to do is just kind of gently knead them in. We don't want to knead this too much, but we do want the nuts, incorporated into the dough like this. And I might add a few more here. Just kind of squish them in there. It's kind of messy. We got our almonds in there, and it's coming together very nicely now. And it's a little messy here, but just keep pulling the dough, the dry ingredients in, and just kind of incorporate them into the ball. we're gonna, in just a minute, we're gonna go to the next step, and this will be 2 separate loaves. So there we go. We've combined all the ingredients. Now, all right, girls, what's our next step?
Form and bake.
Form and bake. All right, back over here. Now, our little ball of dough with the almonds in it is actually going to be 2 separate little loaves. And I have one of these bench scrapers, and I've said this before, but you really need one of these. Just with that or a knife, cut it into 2 separate pieces, and we're going to put them right over on the baking sheet. And the baking sheet has a silicone mat. You can use parchment paper, but this is one of the things I also think you should have. And what we're going to do is we're going to just push down, and we're going to form a loaf like this. I don't know if you've ever had biscottis, but they're about that thick. And we're going to just form it into a rectangle. It's pretty pliable, so that's pretty easy to do. We'll just kind of keep pushing down a little bit. And there we go. And we'll do that with the other one. Push down to form this rectangle. And what we're going to do is we're going to bake these, and then we're going to come back and cut them and bake them again. It's a 2-bake process. I've already preheated the oven to 425, which is in the recipe. But now here you see they don't have to be the same size at all, but they should be about that thick and about that wide. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bake these in a 425-degree oven for 30 minutes. And so here we go. Into the oven they go for 30 minutes. So we'll be back to do the next step when they're done. Okay, I've cleaned up my mess. The biscottis have come out of the oven and they've cooled on a wire rack for about 15-20 minutes, and I'm going to be cutting them now. But before that, I want to mention, I made a mistake. I mentioned that they were baked at 425. It's 325, and that will be in the recipe. So let's go over here. Girls, what is the next step in the process?
Cut and rebake.
Cut and rebake, my lovely assistants. So come on back over here. We got Peppy resting there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take these loaves and we're going to cut them. And we're going to use a serrated knife. Now whenever I recommend you buy something, I want you to know that I use it all the time. This is a knife that my wife and I bought at, I think, a state fair. I think they called it the Ginsu knife or something. It can cut through tires and everything. And they were not lying. This knife we've had for 20, 25 years, and it is as sharp as it was when we bought it. And a serrated knife is necessary for something like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to saw these into strips about, 3/4 of an inch. You can make them whatever width you want, but you see how this serrated knife just saws through this stuff. And we have the biscottis. So we're going to cut away here. Cuts pretty easily, but I tell you, having a serrated knife will help you a great deal. Whoops, there's a piece that will be a sample. Now I'm going to cut through the rest of these, and then when I'm done, I'll come back and we'll continue on. Okay, I finished cutting up the biscottis, and you can see this is, you may have seen these in the store. That's pretty much what they look like. Now, at this point, they're edible. In fact, my family kind of likes them that way. They're more like a soft cookie instead of a crust. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to rebake half of them. And here's the secret. You take the biscottis and you stand them up like this. I'm just going to take the whole loaf over here and spread them out. We want the cut side to be exposed to the heat to dry them out and to make them crusty. So I'm just going to spread them out a little bit so that the heat can get in between them, and they'll turn very crispy, ready for dunking in your favorite hot beverage. Looks like that one's about ready to fall over. Okay, so now they're ready, and we're going to put them back in the oven. Very carefully so they don't fall down. I reduced the heat to 300 degrees and they're in for 20 minutes. So when they're done, we'll come back and we'll show you what they look like. All right, the Biscotti have come out of their second bake of 20 minutes, and as you can see, they're resting on the wire rack. They've been there for about 10 minutes, and I think it's about time to give them a try. So girls, let's grab our tea. Now, these are designed to be dipped in something hot. They're nice and crusty, and so what you do is you dip them in the tea. Let's give it a try and eat them. I tell you, the tea or coffee flavor with the soft biscotti and the almond flavoring, it's great. So, I want to thank my lovely assistants. And if you enjoyed this video, click on the thumbs up below, subscribe, and then click on the little bell, and you will be notified every time we post a new video. So thanks so much for joining us in the Warner's Kitchen. We'll see you next time. Let's try another one.